the best designers are starting to think much more about code.
Right.
The best developers are thinking much more about design.
Okay. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
To start, fiery question.
Uh-huh.
Is AI actually going to take the job of the designer in the future?
I don't think so. It's kind of interesting. Implicit in the question is like, okay, will there be less things to design, or is AI going to do all the design work? Right? So it's like you're on one of those paths, maybe. On the first one of will there be less things to design? If you look at every technological shift or platform shift so far, it's resulted in more things to design.
Yeah.
So you got like the printing press, and then you have to figure out what you put on a page. And you've got even more recently mobile. You would think, okay, less pixels, less designers, right? But no, that's when we saw the biggest explosion of designers.
Right.
And so maybe if you'd asked me this like beginning of the year, you might have said, okay, well, we'll all have these chat boxes, and people will be asking questions in them, and that's going to be our interface for everything. Look at OpenAI. Like they're on a hiring acquisition spree trying to get product people and designers right now so that they're able to make great consumer products. It turns out design kind of matters. The second one of will AI be doing the design is, I think, pretty interesting. So far, we're not there. Right now, we're at a place where AI might be doing the first draft.
Right.
And getting from first draft to final product actually turns out that's kind of hard. And usually takes a team. But if you could get AI to start to suggest interface elements to people and do that in a way that actually makes sense, I think that could unlock like a whole new era of design in terms of creating contextual designs that are responsive to what the user's intent is at the moment. And I think that'd be a fascinating era for sort of all designers to be working in, but I don't think it replaces the need for human designers.
Right. You started to go into this in the second part, and I totally agree with you on the first part. Like, this is a shift of abundance, I would say, right? And just like the other big shifts in technology we've had in the past. Maybe go deeper on how AI is actually going to change the work itself that the designer does.
I think AI will make it so that all of us are able to do more design work in the first place. So lower the floor for who's able to participate in the design process, but it also raise the ceiling of what you can actually do. And as a designer, it'll help you move across this ladder of abstraction that we're all inherently working on. Everything from like high-level prompting or ideation to pixel work to, okay, how exactly should this motion curve look? I think right now, if you're trying to be like the ultimate craftsperson, it takes a long time to learn all the skills that are necessary.
Yeah.
But if you're able to, again, get to that first draft with the help of AI first, perhaps it makes it so that you're able to more easily iterate on things and jump between the solution space and see more of the solution space. And then you can dive in and figure out, okay, of the solution space, what do I want to iterate on further? Kind of on that topic, like we actually have been exploring in FigJam, how should AI manifest? I have a demo I can show of some stuff.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Demo?
Yes.
Okay, so if you haven't seen FigJam, this is our whiteboarding brainstorming product. Here in this FigJam, we've been doing this brainstorm. Okay, what topic should I talk about at AA16Z? And we've got some sticky notes. It's like, okay, Figma's vision for AI and future roadmap. How is Gen AI different for design versus text, et cetera? So one thing we're introducing today is this new thing called Jambot. Jambot makes it so you can basically create a diagram and wire something from like a sticky or a section, which is a section just contains elements in your screen, to basically a prompt agent. For example, we've got this section here of the brainstorm, and I've wired up to a custom prompt, which is, the input contains the topics I'm going to cover in a presentation at the conference. Please suggest a list of ideas for a fun and novel title for this presentation. So I'll press run, and it'll give me a bunch of different titles. okay, I can now say, okay, maybe I can have this as something else. So we'll select haiku, and now it'll give me a haiku for each of these titles. Nothing that we haven't seen before from ChatGPT. Obviously, we're running this off the back end of these systems. But what I think is neat is that then you can start to explore your prompting in a more nonlinear way. And also, you're able to do it in a way where you can be able to see sort of the history of what you've done as a graph on the screen. So for example, maybe I want to say, okay, what are the startups to watch working on AI? And now I can go and say, well, give me, and it'll suggest based on the prompt for startups to watch working on AI, a list of options. And maybe I select here companies. And from there, it'll give me a list of companies. Or perhaps I want to rabbit hole on something. And so I can press rabbit hole. It selects the default of first sticky, OpenAI. I'll press that, and now it's going to give me some different options for things to look into. So I could keep going there, or perhaps, based on Figma's vision for AI and future roadmap, I could, try to ideate there, and based on that, it'll give me a bunch of stickies. So here it says different ways we could implement AI features in the Figma roadmap. The first one is develop an AI-powered design assistant. And perhaps now we're getting to the point where we want to explore how we launch this. And so if I press rewrite this, and I'll say, as a tweet in the style of @Zoink, that's my Twitter username. And maybe I want to try that again, make it shorter and less emojis. Okay, not bad. But I think, yeah, it's been really fun about this is it gives you a way to just explore these topics that to me feels different than your typical chat session. Came out of a hackathon, actually.
That's great. So going back to the conversation before you did the demo, I absolutely love what you said about the raise the ceiling, and particularly for me, the lower the floor. On that note, when we actually originally made our investment in Figma, Peter, my partner, wrote on our thesis, so we are moving into the decade of design, where design, not just code, is at the center of product development and successful organizations. The interface no longer reflects the code, but the code reflects the design. So talk a little bit more about the relationship between designers, developers, and AI. And then loaded topic, how would you differentiate the creativity of a machine or an AI versus that of a human?
Okay, that's a lot of questions in one.
That's a lot. Chaining together.
Yeah, need my Jambot. Sorry. I think taking the last one first. The question, if I understand right, is how do you differentiate the creativity of a human versus machine?
Yeah.
I kind of think it's like a sub-question of just what's the modern day Turing test?
Yeah.
And I feel like this question kind of comes up everywhere now. And we're now seeing from these systems that it's easy to convince a human that you're human. It's hard to actually make good things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like I could have GPT-4 create a business plan and come pitch you. That doesn't mean you're going to invest. When you actually have two businesses side by side, and they're competing, and one of them is run by an AI, and the other one's run by a human, and you invest in the AI business, then I'm worried.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, that's a good test.
And for Figma, I think that getting to that first draft, I hope will make it much easier. And if we're able to lower the floor and make it so that more people in the organization can contribute to the design process, I suspect that we'll get better results and more people will be able to explore the option space of what the company can do. I also think that, we're a little biased here. Like our vision for Figma is to make design accessible to all. And that's been our vision for a long time now. Before that, it was eliminate the gap between imagination and reality. Both of those work pretty well with this new world. And, we've actually seen through design systems, basically creating kits and systems of parts that anyone in the organization can use and bring into their design, that has unlocked a lot for designers and for everyone in the organization to be able to contribute to the design process. And it's made results better for everybody. And now most companies actually that are at scale have design systems teams in order to make it so that more people are able to contribute to that process. And so I think this will be welcomed by designers.
Talk about the actual elements of design itself, and the shift that you had, the tools that you provide, right? Like one, collaboration, but two, ease with which you can create. Now with AI, you massively open up the opportunity for creation, right? So talk about like the actual tasks and some of the up-leveling that you envision now that we have AI.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is that even before this moment in time, we've already been seeing roles kind of collapse. So designers and developers, for example, the line is getting a lot more blurry than it was in the past. Uh, the best designers are starting to think much more about code.
Right.
The best developers are thinking much more about design. Uh, and I think if you go even up sort of beyond designers and developers, um, if you think about a product person, for example, maybe before they were working on a spec, uh, but now they're going much more into mockups. And it's not because they're trying to take the job of a designer. It's because rather they're trying to communicate their ideas more effectively. And I believe that just basically this will allow anyone in the organization to go from idea to design and possibly to production as well eventually much faster. But I think you'll still need to hone each of those steps. You'll need someone to really think through, okay, what ideas are we going to explore? How are we going to explore them? You'll want to tweak the designs. You'll want to finesse them properly to go from first draft to final product. And on the code side, I haven't yet met any developer who's just pressing the button for Copilot all the time.
Absolutely.
Like they're doing it in collaboration with it. We're not at full self-driving for code yet.
Yeah.
Perhaps one day we will get there, but I think we're still a long ways off. Right now, it can't really generate like a README for an open source project.
So earlier you mentioned the printing press and sort of revolutionizing the way that we communicate and distribute content. I think AI is doing something similar or maybe even more powerful. The question I have though is about the format. So most of the LLMs today that we're accessing is just text-based or image generation-based. So how is applying Gen AI to design actually different from just text or from images?
Yeah, on a technical level, if you look at the actual internal structure of a Figma document, it's much more similar to an abstract syntax tree, and less similar to like some image. And I think because of that, probably one outcome might be that we find more success with models that are similar to Copilot than you do with like a diffusion model, for example, when you're trying to figure out how do you actually create designs using AI systems. That said, some of the foundational models are really good. So like GPT-4, if you ask it, hey, I want to have this like dog sitter app, can you give me the basic XML structure for that or something? Like it'll give you that, and it'll give you some very simplistic layout that maybe is going to spark something for you. Like the other day, I was creating a birthday card for my friend Ari. He's really into retro computer stuff, and so I asked GPT-4, hey, what would be a good structure for a program called Ari Online? Just to see what it would say.
Wow.
And give me a pretty good structure of like jokes to do. And I selected a few of them, and I made a birthday card and HyperCard out of it because I was trying to be really retro.
Yeah.
It turns out there's emulators available. Anyway, I'm getting a little off topic, but the point being that like you can get some basic structure from these foundational models too, but they don't take you all the way there. And so a lot of our job right now as we think about text design in Figma is figuring out, okay, how do we leverage all the different tools available in order to make good progress there?
Yeah. What do you actually think are the big breakthroughs that need to happen in order to actually take this next level? And then where do you think that gets you from a product standpoint? And I'm talking like technical, like, arms and legs, memory, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that the way we're approaching from Figma's perspective is not putting all of our eggs in one basket. And I think the demo is a good example of that. We have done a lot to basically try to make sure that everyone in the company knows how important it is to take this technology and use it across our entire product. As we've done that, there have been a bunch of different areas that I wouldn't have predicted where it seems like AI might be very useful. Now, the next question will be, okay, where does the cost make sense?
Yeah.
And where does the usability predictable and like, it's going to be more helpful than not usually?
Yeah.
Versus like once in a while it gives you something good. It's like it usually gives you something good.
So I want to shift gears just a little bit and maybe towards like the business and kind of market structure side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all very excited about AI. We think it's the biggest thing since the microchip. And we're very high confidence in that. I would say where we are potentially very low confidence is who are going to be the winners and where in the value chain will value accrue on the business side. So in the question of startups versus incumbents, I think there's a case to be made that a company like Figma is just perfectly positioned to take advantage of this because you actually have some distribution, you have customer relationships, but you also are a young company. Like you ship fast, you move fast, you can disrupt yourself. I'm curious your take on like who is best positioned given that dynamic, and then if you have any view of like where in the value chain you think value will accrue.
On the question of sort of startups versus incumbents, it's hard to believe that foundational models won't get commoditized, but I'm definitely I'm willing to be proven wrong there. But it does seem like, over time, this should be something that like there's a lot of foundational models out there. I understand the arguments for why incumbents may benefit in a disproportionate way. Basically, every platform shift that's happened, people have claimed that, and then it hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you're a startup, this is a pretty good time to basically pick the area that you think could really benefit from this technology and go after it and try to find ways to make innovation there. And I wouldn't bet against startups in a general sense there. It's so early, and most of the things that I'm seeing, because I do some investing in and feel like reasonably connected to the ecosystem, most of what I see coming right now is still at the foundational slash, sort of base model area. And, if it's not that, it's like infrastructure or dev tools.
Yeah, exactly.
And not at all like, okay, how do we use this all the way up the stack? And so I think that that's coming. Enterprise is coming. There's a lot of stuff that will show up in all these areas, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, the concept on the enterprise side, I think, which is interesting to think about is, software, like people always talk about their systems of record, right? And like that's the powerful moat of a software company. And, over the last handful of years, like systems of record have been pretty good at becoming systems of prediction.
Yep.
But there's still like a bunch of workflow and windows that people click around in. And so I think the promise of AI, I'm curious for your take on this, is that we'll actually create a system of action. So we'll actually do the action on your behalf. And that completely transforms what interface you need. And oh, by the way, with the foundational models, like it probably changes the way that your data is organized underneath and accessed too.
Yeah, I'm still believe that there'll probably be a human in the loop for quite a while. But I do like the idea of system of action and how do you actually help people get through the tasks that are like the really obvious things so they can focus on high level work. And I suspect that if we're able to do that effectively, then just the way that work will happen will be fundamentally transformed, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. On this topic, and we kind of danced around it before, but one of your biggest unlocks when you originally built the product was actually building in the browser.
Yep.
And that enabled collaboration, which was entirely new, in the design space. And then famously, it took you many years to actually ship your product because the build of it was so complex architecturally, right? Now you can access an API and immediately get the model and the value to the end user. So do you think this time is different and, the use cases and the winners will be determined much faster? Or do you think we're still steps away and they just are either technological unlocks or business unlocks or good idea unlocks?
I think that everyone that talks to me and says, hey, we're trying to build our startup like Figma. We're going to take years to develop it. And we'll go talk to our first user. And I'm like, first of all, it's not what we did. And second of all, don't do that.
Not generalizable.
And so I would encourage anyone who's like starting a company or trying to ship a software product here to try to get out to market as fast as you can. At the same time, if you look at the arc of machine learning and what might be coming, it's there might be a lull between where we're at now with LLMs and where folks say we're going with AGI.
Okay, so just in closing, most of the audience here is a room full of builders. So if you were starting another company or giving advice to someone who's thinking about starting another company, like where would you go build given this big shift? Like what do you want to see get built?
Okay, well, that's a different question than what would I build.
Actually, both. So we go both. Yeah.
Well, I'll just answer the what do I want to see, because I think it's the one that I like the most, which is I feel like when it comes to science, just the applications of all this technology that's happening right now are still completely underexplored. whether it's using deep learning to get approximations of systems faster, or figuring out how we can just accelerate human progress in general. I get really excited about like what could happen there.
And then what would you build?
Figma.
Figma AI first. Yes, exactly. I love that. Well, awesome. Look, that's all we had. It's clear that AI's got just massive potential for you, for Figma, for the design space, and for the individuals who are actually building and design. So thank you so much for being here with us, and excited to see what you guys ship next.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye all.